Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Today we're taking a look at one of the best hunter builds in the game. One comparable to the current grapple builds that are very popular right now. And with the pieces of this build being recently buffed with Edge of Fate, it allows some very fascinating things to happen, like chucking 100 nukes back to back. So if you're a hunter wanting to try out something that isn't just grapple, then this is the build for you. Now, before we begin, as usual, there are timestamps and a dim link down below for your convenience. And if you enjoy this content, a subscription would be greatly appreciated. That way, you don't miss out on my next build. But with that out of the way, diving into the build itself, we're actually going to start with a piece of our subclass. The ability and aspect that this build is based on, which is Gunpowder Gamble. This aspect received so many buffs with the launch of Edge of Fate, making it truly powerful and much safer to use. But first, what is Gunpowder Gamble? Well, we can read it in game. Defeat targets with abilities, elemental debuff damage, or solar weapons to charge up an improvised solar explosive. Now, we can see this in action where we now have the Gunpowder Gamble counter on the left side of our screen. This has 6 boxes, and every solar weapon kill will fill up 1 box, and if we get a kill with an ability, that goes up by 4, we're now charged, and supers will give you a full meter in 1 kill. But as you can probably tell, only needing 6 charges is not a lot in today's sandbox. Most of our weapons and abilities can often clear entire groups of adds at once, leading to things like this, where you throw 1 melee and easily get an entire charge. But now, what does Gunpowder Gamble do once we actually charge it? Well, as you can see immediately, it overrides our grenade ability icon to become this solar looking one. And when we do press our grenade ability, we throw out this stick of dynamite. It's like 2 trip mines duct taped together. The grenade will either go off by itself after a fairly long fuse, or you can do the iconic action of shooting it mid-air to detonate it early. And do pay attention that once thrown, you will have a 6-second lockout where you can't build charges for your next one. Now, besides how it works, what are the effects of this special grenade? Well, number 1 is that it's effectively just an ignition on demand. That means it has a pretty great AoE radius and can even be used to stun unstoppable champions. But then the last thing to talk about for Gunpowder Gamble is how it scales its damage. As a grenade ability, it scales with grenade damage, including the grenade stat. So, like right here, I have less than 100 grenade, and I deal 675 damage. But then when I increase my grenade stat to 135, we get a 23% damage increase and deal 829 damage. And that's just the grenade stat. There are a lot more ways to actually get this number higher, which we'll go over in a moment. The last thing to talk about when it comes to Gunpowder Gamble though, is what I showed you in the beginning. You can actually bypass the Gunpowder Gamble lockout by throwing it within about a second of when it becomes charged. So if you pair it with a lingering melee like Threaded Spike, you can chuck a ton of them back to back. Now, coming out of what we're basing this build on, it's time to look at what exotics you want to pair with it. And for this build, it really just comes down to exotic armor. There is no necessary exotic weapon, making this build perfect for every endgame activity because you can choose your weapons to handle either champs or even raid/dungeon boss damage. As for that exotic armor piece, we are using an exotic class item, but it's only for one specific perk. So before you worry, remember that you can effectively guarantee at least that perk whenever you get a class item by attuning to Ghost at the Pale Heart. Or you can use the default exotic armor piece, but it will work slightly less optimally. Now, which exotic perk do we want? Well, we are going for Certarachne's Facade, or Spirit of Certarachne. This reads, gain Woven Mail when you use your grenade. In-game, this may be the easiest thing to see, where if we use our grenade ability, we get 10 seconds of Woven Mail. And this does also count for Gunpowder Gamble. Now, why do we want Woven Mail? Well, it's a source of damage resist, a very high source. With this buff active, we take 40% less damage, allowing us to tank so much. But even more than just DR, Woven Mail also synergizes a ton with our current artifact, but more on that later. Again, timestamps down below. Also, as this is an exotic class item perk, we do have one other exotic perk that we can pair with it, but there isn't a necessary singular one. You can use whatever you have, and we will talk about optimal combos during the armor stat section later in the video. Now, keeping the build rolling and moving on from our exotic armor piece, let's take a look at the rest of our subclass. Starting with our super, this can be anything, but I often find myself using Golden Gun or Shadow Shot. This is due to their end game and boss fight utility. For the dodge, we run Gambler's Dodge to refund our melee, although you could do Marksman or Acrobat's Dodge if you wanted to. For that melee, we run Threaded Spike because this is far and away the best standard melee that hunters can use. It's effective in pretty much all content, it's massively lethal, and it even severs enemies, keeping our survivability up. Then for the grenade, which will exist under our Gunpowder Gamble, we use grapple because even if you're using this build after grapple has been nerfed, it's still a fun and potent option. But realistically, you could switch this with anything you like. And then for our aspects, of course, the first option is Gunpowder Gamble, as you already know, but the second one is Ascension. This aspect reads that we can use our dodge midair to move upwards and release an AoE that amplifies us and jolts enemies. In game, we can see us doing so, and this is particularly good for the build because Ascension kills often fully charge our Gunpowder Gamble. And then the amplification we get offers even more damage resist and survivability. Ascension also activates the dodge equipped under it, so there's no need to worry about losing value there. As for the rest of the subclass, we have our Fragments. The first one I'm running is Fast of Purpose. This aspect offers even more survivability with a buff depending on our equipped super. When running either Golden Gun or Shadow Shot, that's Restoration or Woven Mail respectively. After Purpose, we have Facet of Protection, which gives us DR when near enemies, making us even more tanky than we already were. Then after that is Facet of Dawn, so our grapple melees and Threaded Spike make us Radiant, perfect for handling barrier champs and just doing more damage. Then Facet of Courage, which makes our light abilities do more damage to dark debuffed enemies. This gives plus 10% damage to our super and Gunpowder Gamble. And lastly, we run Blessing so that melee kills proc health regen. Now out of our subclass, the next thing to look at is our weapons of choice. There is nothing here that is a must for this build. I often find myself using Mint Retrograde and either Yeartide Apex or Lord of Wolves if I can manage the ammo. And for heavy, it's often an Eager Edge Sword or whatever I might need for boss damage. Ultimately, just use whatever you want. If you have a favorite exotic, then use that. Now coming off of weapons, the next thing is our armor, and this is where I'll talk about our stats as well as what to pair with Spirit of Pseudarachne on the class item. Starting with that, the most brainless and a simple pairing is Spirit of Inmost Light. This perk is easily the most popular exotic class item perk in the game, and that is for good reason. It reads, using an ability empowers the other two abilities, granting them improved energy regeneration. And in game, we can see that when we use our grenade and our melee, our dodge comes back extremely quickly. And what's great with this build is that Gunpowder Gamble will also activate Spirit of Inmost Light. This perk essentially guarantees that we can spam abilities whenever and wherever we want to. As for some other pairings, you could use Spirit of Foe Tracer to give your strand weapons increased damage when using your melee or grapple, and your solar weapons increase damage when using your Gunpowder Gamble. And then the last kind of good pairing that I thought of would be Spirit of Assassin, so that grapple, melee, and Threaded Spike kills make you invisible. Now after our exotic class item, we have our armor stats. For this build, we want to have as high grenade stat as possible. This is due to the synergy with the increased damage and our Gunpowder Gamble. A bigger number is usually better. After that though, having some investment into melee and class is a good idea. That way we can be spamming our abilities optimally. And then running whatever is left into super is also usually a pretty good idea. But the main focus is just grenade. But now for the armor mods. On the helmet, we run a special finder and siphons for our weapons. On our arms, we have 2 heavy-handed for only 5 seconds between orbs generated by our melees, and a focusing strike to get dodge back when dealing melee damage. Our chest has ammo generation and a resist. Our legs has a scav for our special weapons, and 2 recuperation to give us back a ton of health on orb pickup. And our class item is a powerful attraction, special finisher combo for infinite special, and a bomber to reduce our grenade cooldown whenever we dodge. And then finally, we have the artifact. Within there's actually a great amount of synergy with this build. The first thing that comes up is Tightly Woven. This artifact perk will give us plus 20 grenade and class stat whenever we throw our grenade, because whenever we throw a grenade, we get Woven Mail. That means just by throwing our grenade, we're increasing grenade damage. And plus 20 stat in game looks like a damage increase of about 10.6%, letting our Gunpowder Gamble deal 917 damage. Then the next big synergizing artifact perk is of course Shield Crush. This perk says we deal increased melee damage when we have Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or a Void Overshield, and increased grenade damage when we are Radiant or Amplified. This build for the melee side of things does benefit us with our grapple doing increased damage as well as our Threaded Spike, but of course the focus is on our grenade, which, because this build also makes us Amplified and Radiant all the time, our grenade gets a 25% damage increase. As we can see, our new damage number is now 1,146. And then where the rest of the artifact is concerned, In the final column, you can either go Radiant Shrapnel, which helps us a bit with ad clear when doing weapon damage while radiant, or you could go with Tangled Web, which will suspend things whenever you make tangles. Normally I run the latter. Now finally, to end us off, we have the gameplay loop. Luckily, we're back to it being very simple. To begin, we just want to kill things. The best initiation that I found was using Ascension, that way we get our damage resist and evasion from Amplified immediately. The debuff from this ability will also jumpstart our Gunpowder Gamble stacks. After ascending, a Throated Spike will usually kill everything, and you'll often find that from one melee ability, you get an entire Gunpowder Gamble charged. Throw that Gunpowder Gamble and spam the rest of your abilities to cycle them into one another. Especially so if you have the God Roll Relativism with Spirit of Inmost Light. By simply clicking buttons and being in the fight, you'll have massive damage resist and healing keeping you there. I would say the best tip I can offer is to never hold on to your Gunpowder Gamble. It charges so quickly that you should just be tossing them on repeat. Remember to spam your grenade button, that way you can make use of the double throw tech, and that's actually about it. In this build, there isn't one big thing that we're working towards. It's just constant ability spam that feeds into this fluid cycle of using everything constantly. Of course, do remember to pop Transcendence, which gives you extra damage resist and lethality, although do note that you can't throw Gunpowder Gamble while in this mode, and pop your super when necessary. I guess the one thing to note though is that if your loop ever does completely drop, like you have no abilities at all, then just get solar weapon kills to charge Gunpowder Gamble, which upon throwing that grenade and getting damage or kills, you will just restart the cycle. And with that, thank you for getting this far into the video. Remember, there is a dim link down below for your convenience. If you want to support me for the channel, a like, a comment, a subscription goes a very long way. Also, thank you guys for 20K subscribers. It means the world to me. On to the next one, the next milestone. If you want to support me and support the channel, but you can't think of a comment down below, salad, because you toss salad, and in this build, you toss grenades. And with that, as usual, I hope you are having a great day, and I hope to see you around.